Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome Dr. Nepali and Dr. Shrikant. And without wasting the time, I think we can start with the session. And the first presenter will be the keynote address by Dr. Vinekar, Anand Vinekar. So Dr. Anand Vinekar, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for considering my request to reschedule that talk. In keeping with the interest of the keynote address is typically a presentation made the previous year. So I've not really changed it, and I'm going to present it exactly from what happened last year. So I have no commercial interests. So first of all, the paper is about talking about a new device that can actually screen for ROP using a low-cost imaging device. So why do we need it? So the problem statement is the fact that when we began this program over 10 years ago, and even now nothing much has changed, there are more than 35 lakh babies born preterm every year in India. And that's the #1 country across all countries. And the Indian ROP Society has less than 150 specialists, less than 100 of whom are actually comfortable with treatment. What we started off about 10 years ago was taking this RETCAM shuttle into the rural neonatal intensive care units. These images were being taken by non-doctors, whom we call non-physician trainees, who took these pictures and also were taught to report these images then and there. And then they uploaded these images on a telemedicine platform for the ROP specialist to look at on his or her smartphone. What started off as 3 hospitals has now grown to about 107, now it's about 112. And over 1 lakh babies have been screened, and close to 2,000 babies now have got treated, and the entire state has been covered. 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, the Supreme Court said that ROP screening is essential newborn care. In other words, if we don't screen, we're going to be liable for medical legal liability. So with this program expanding to several other states and even some other countries, what was the barrier for scaling it up? Well, the cost of the camera. It's 85 at the conservative attempt. If a government segment buys it with the AMCs, it goes to almost £1 crore. And if you have to have this camera travel around, it's quite expensive. So the invention that we started off with was actually, was the aim of the study, to report this new Indian invention. It came under the Make in India scheme. It's a low-cost infant retinal camera, and we wanted to, in this study, compare it with the gold standard, and most importantly, look at its economic benefits. We teamed up with an industry partner in Bangalore city called Forus Health. You all are aware of their other products, and with IIT Chennai, and with Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. As you know, the Prime Minister's favorite scheme is the Make in India scheme. So it really came under that. And the R&D actually started much before this government. So it started off with making some prototypes, first in thermocol and then in plaster of Paris, and then actually improving the whole form factor so that it could mimic without doing any reverse engineering of the so-called gold standard. The initial devices about 3 years ago were not really what we wanted. They were quite bulky, and they were not as good in terms of illumination and in the field. Then the first prototype came in about early 2015. It was much bulkier, and the images were okay, not too good, especially in the peripheral retina, where the illumination was so much that a lot of the vascular detail was getting sort of blurred out. We then had to go through a very extensive safety trial where not just the biosafety but phototoxicity, etc. had to be tested, and a very stringent ethics committee approval had to be got. This work is actually submitted and is looking for a publication. And after the ethics committee, we then looked at a study which tried to compare it with the gold standard. So this is the current handpiece that's available in the market. It's now FDA and CE approved for more than about 18 months now, and more than 20 installations in the country so far, but not that many when this presentation was made last year. So you can see the blood vessels are now reaching the edge. You can take up to the periphery, which is about 120 degrees. The RETCAM is 130, and this compares pretty well. Also, more importantly, this device sits in a small briefcase and is much more portable. It was not made with reverse engineering. The engineers did not break down the RETCAM and invent it from backwards. There were at least 2 new innovations in terms of the lens. So they used a liquid lens, and instead of using a halogen light, they used an LED light. Also, the entire photograph that you see is a much larger circle compared to the sort of cutout ends that you get from the RETCAM. So from the Neo, you were able to get this superior and inferior retina extra. Of course, the cost was much lesser. It was about 12 to 15 lakhs, and I think that price is scheduled to come down further compared to the 85 lakhs that we spoke about, and that's the size difference. Now, since one was a circular image and one was a sort of cut-off image, if we had to do a mass study, we had to crop these images. So that's what was done. and these images using a software had to look like each other so that the readers did not know from which device these images came. And then it was presented to 2 ROP specialists sitting in different parts of the country. Over 1,000 babies were actually enrolled into this study. There's nothing big deal about the gestational age and the period and the birth weight. It was just comparable. But here's what you really want to see. So on top is a picture taken by the new camera, and you can see the early sort of stage 2 in zone 3, and the same thing is picked up by the gold standard. So a reddish hue compared to a bluish hue, and a red is what actually the blood vessels look like. So this was more natural form. These are vessels not showing you disease, but to show you what the blood vessels reach at the edge. So this is the same baby taken at the same time. This is an immature retina, and that's a mature retina, to show you that this is a wide field image. These are uncropped images. So this is a stage 3 in about zone 2 on the ret cam, and the same baby at the same time taken on the neo, and this is the full circle that you get to see. So the limitation was that we have not really got excellent results in any of those lesions that are protruding into the vitreous cavity. So we were scared that vitreous seeding, let's say in a case of retinoblastoma, might be missed out. Also, we had not, at least at that time, tested it out on older and heavier babies, but currently that limitation has been met. And finally, since the study was done in Bangalore and in around Karnataka, it's just a single race and ethnicity. The sensitivity improved, rather it was almost stable from the initial 140 babies to the 1,000 babies. The sensitivity was in the 90s, but the specificity was really low to begin with. It was about 40%, and that has improved to 78. But as another 2,500 babies have got added in the past 1 year, this is looking to the high 80s or even early 90s. So the community benefit, finally a device is important because we wanted to make a difference in the community. So the cost benefit analysis, so for this we engaged few specialists from Indian Institute of Management or IIM Bangalore within our city, and they did a very extensive cost effective analysis. I'm going to just get into their summary. So set up a new program, let's say there's no ROP program in a particular place, so set it up, it would be just 20% of the current costs, and to keep it running it would be 50% of the current cost. So that's still high, and obviously we need to look at how to reduce that further, but then it's a significant reduction. This means that for the whole state of Karnataka, where we're looking at an average of about 18,000 sessions in the current KidRaw program, this would mean we are able to reduce the cost 6-fold, and almost 5-fold would be the reduction in the recurrent costs. So as this entire program has now got validated using the CDC guidelines, and taking from that report which was done, and this report was submitted to Government of India, it says that if you go back to indirect ophthalmoscopy, it might be suboptimal care and you might be inviting a medico-legal problem. Also, Government of India is now for the first time actually recognizing wide field imaging as an actual alternative for indirect ophthalmoscopy performed by ROP specialists, but it's not mentioned who and how they can do it, but with lowering costs that might be important. And with proliferating number of newborn care units across the country, both in the government and in the private sector. On the left, you see the RetCam, how we used to move it around into the rural centers, and how much smaller a vehicle and much easier it is, portable it is to carry the current device. So in conclusion, so far, the blindness that we have prevented in Karnataka state, and this number has increased now, is about 450 crore of blindness potential if you multiply the number of babies saved by the per capita income and the life expectancy. If we use the NEO, this would be upwards of 2,000 crores. So that's the impact you can make to the community. And how much more can we prevent? This paper then subsequently has got published in the IJO. If you just expand this program to 9 high-risk states, we will be preventing a burden of more than 3,500 crores if we use the lower cost model. Finally, it's about, for us clinicians, it's about the children or the babies that we take care of. This baby was detected to have a zone 1 ROP about 8 years ago on the RetCam, on the American camera. And now she's grown up, and this is her younger brother who was picked up about 2 years ago using the NEO camera, and life comes back a full circle. And we're very happy that we are able to make a small but significant difference in the lives of these children. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Anand. I thought there are few bottlenecks in your study. One, you have already highlighted
this
some
is
of
not
the...
in the competitive section, sir.
Some of the...
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, sure.
I know it's a keynote address,
Yes.
but it's a wonderful topic. It is of the immense interest to the audience, so I was just trying to interact with you.
Please.
And have something to learn more from this. It's a wonderful study you have presented, but there appears to be some bottlenecks. One, the limitations you have already highlighted. Two, it is limited to Karnataka only. So would you like to associate yourself with AIOS and undertake some national level project and try to, get some legal, sort of acceptance of it? Because ROP, you have rightly mentioned 1.5 crore rupees penalty was declared by the Supreme Court. So how would you look into this?
Limitation, I'll answer in two parts. The limitation of the camera is being met. This was a year ago, and now the newer versions have even better illumination and mid-vitreous focus as well. As far as expanding beyond Karnataka, we have been training states outside Karnataka since 2010. Already 8 states are trained on our model, and that includes Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Pune, Lucknow, and now Madhya Pradesh, and very soon Chhattisgarh as well. So we are at the national level. In fact, a group of us belong to the Indian ROP Society, and that is now creating a sort of a platform where all the ROP specialists across the country are going to be accredited as screeners and treaters. And this is going to be the medical legal document, because neonatologists don't know whom to refer to, and a lot of treatments happen sometimes which may not be required. So the society is trying to look at bringing out stringent accreditation values. So it is going on, and now in Karnataka, the new model is to train nurses to take these pictures and using the low-cost camera, and that also is expanding to other states.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Anand, for your...
One point of interest to Dr. Anand Venekar. This project was funded by Department of Science and Technology. Incidentally, I happen to be the expert on the panel who gives the grants. Forest people got 24 crores rupees interest-free loan. So if anybody amongst the audience or you yourself got an idea about it, instead of collaborating with the forest, one can himself can present it, and government in India is full of
Funds.
That's what I was trying to mention, Sid. Why not to move it through AIOS? No, or MCI or any other, some...
CDP is a different body, Ministry of Science and Technology, that is called Technical Development Board, doesn't have any link with MCI or AIOS. You have to present your novel idea, what way it can benefit the India, and if your project fulfilled, Forest got 24 crores rupees free interest.
I see.
And it is many times is a grant. You ask Forest people, I was there on the panel, they got the grant. Right? Many times you need not to pay also. It is grant, something like that. But to be some cost charges, otherwise everybody will run away with the money. So they just put, I think, 1% or 0.5% or expensive charges or so.
Right.
That's a good idea. Maybe instead of industry, a doctor can himself put up an idea.
I think Dr. Shrikant's idea has been taken up. Thank you, Dr. Anand. Thank you for your wonderful keynote address. Now we go to the presentation of the papers. Our first paper is Outcomes of Telescreening for Retinopathy of Prematurity in Rural South India. Dr. Parag Shah. You are Dr. Parag Shah?
Yes, sir.
What is your membership number of AIOS?
S09271.
Right. Start your presentation, and please stick to the time allotted to you. Thank you.
Sir. The timer, 6 minutes. Okay. So I'll be presenting about the outcomes of telescreening of ROP in rural South India, and this is again using the RedCam machine. And as has been told by the previous speaker, that ROP, India is the highest number of preterm children according to the WHO. And neonatal care units, which were only restricted to the urban areas from 2005, the government of India has opened up special newborn care units in every district, and now more than 600 SNCUs are functioning in the country. Moreover, apart from that, there are more than 5 to 15 private NICUs in each district headquarter. And so with the improvement in neonatal care, many preterms survive even in the rural areas, and this has led to the increase in ROP. But the ground reality is that awareness is low, and although trained ROP experts are available in urban cities, they are non-existent in rural areas, and there's a large lacuna of providing ROP screening services in this area. And this is where this project of ROPE SOS, which is a telescreening project of our hospital. So ROPE SOS was funded by Mr. Sukrito Bakchi, who was the founder of Mindtree, and the USAID. The funds was there from these two agencies. And the aim was to screen 2,000 babies per year in the unserved and rural areas where no screening was done. And the team consists of 2 managers, 2 trained technicians or non-physicians, 1 MLOP and 1 driver, and which started covering 9 districts of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So we got the RedCam shuttle, the portable one, and we trained the sisters into 2 phases. The phase 1 was on a mannequin, which comes with the RedCam, training on that, and the second phase would be on the real babies under the supervision of the ROP expert. And we had a customized van which was built, which was strong enough to carry the RedCam camera and can go even in the rural area with the bad roads. And there's a facility for diode laser also, which is carried with the van, and it can be done even in the van. There's a table there and has a power with inverter facility. So the image transmission was one thing, and so Arvind Eye Hospital has a diabetic retinopathy screening program, and we modified that. It's called the Address, Arvind Diabetic Retinopathy Screening Software, which we modified for ROP, and the connectivity was the 3G, 4G, which is now available in most of the rural areas, and the central address server was installed in Arvind, Coimbatore. So this is the modified address software. This is for diabetic retinopathy, but we modified this for ROP, and you can see the neonatal risk factors and the maternal risk factors and the neonatal risk factors, and this is how the images will look to the grader. So not only the images, the patient's data also will be seen by the grader. So the target districts were 200 kilometers from Coimbatore in the Tamil Nadu area and 200 kilometers in Kerala, and now we cover a total of 53 NICUs per week. And later on 3 more districts were added. So we cover a population of 50 million and a geographic area of almost 50,000 square kilometer, covering 12 districts. So from June 2015, August 2015 to June 2017, we have screened 7,299 babies, out of which 4,000 were new and 3,000 were review. And any stage of ROP was seen in 1,431 babies, and 111 babies were identified with vision-threatening ROP and treated. Apart from ROP, we could find retinal hemorrhages which were not related to ROP in 203 babies, cataract in 10, because we do anterior segment imaging also. It's more of a universal eye care, strabismus, and we could pick up even a case with retinoblastoma. So a part of the program was patient education. So we had these posters in the local language and English, which was put in all the NICUs for the parents to read. And the brochures are given to all the patients with positive ROP in either English or in the local language, so that they come for the follow-up. Another part of the program was to conduct CME program. So every 6 weeks, all the district hospitals, we had a CME program where the awareness, where the neonatal nurses and neonatal staff, they were targeted. And at the end of it, we could sensitize almost 711 neonatal staff, sensitizing the prevention aspect of ROP, where how if you reduce the oxygen levels in the proper care, then the ROP rates can actually be reduced. So the impact was more parents will demand eye evaluation for newborn, more healthcare providers will refer preterm babies on time, and in turn more ophthalmologists will get trained in ROP screening and management due to increased referrals and demand. So like I said, what we started from 200 kilometers, it then spilled over beyond that to this place Malappuram in Kerala, and then we went to Dharmapuri, and then we got to Krishnagiri, and now we go all the way up to Hosur, which is almost 350 kilometers from town. The van goes every week there. So now, and Dindigul also, and so now we have a radius of 300 kilometers on the Tamil Nadu side. So from August 2000, we had a second team also, and now with lessons learned from the first team, we have got a smaller van which got shock absorbers, and the RedCam can easily get fitted even in this smaller van. So in summary, early identification by telescreening prevents needless blindness, avoids visits of ophthalmologists unless indicated, and increases awareness amongst all neonatal staff. And with lack of specialized ophthalmologists, telescreening could be the only option providing ROP services in rural India. So there's a short video, which is not much different from the one which was shown by the previous speaker, but this is how they take the van every week with the trained technicians, and the reporting is done on the base hospital, and it can be done even for any simple Android phone. And it takes around 10 minutes for the report to go, and the instant report goes to the patient and counseling is done. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting a very viable study. Now Now I call upon the next speaker, who is going to talk about morbid ocular diseases causing mental illness and its prevention. Dr. Sikha Mishra. Ma'am, your membership number?
M17861. Good afternoon, judges, and good afternoon, everybody. My topic is morbid ocular diseases causing mental illness and its prevention. There is a well-established link between poor eye health and mental health, and it's important that those involved with eye care be aware of this. Morbid ocular disease comes under a very wide frame, under which comes high refractive error, cataract, ARMD, end-stage glaucoma, keratoconus refractory to treatment, pedia with vitreous hemorrhage and retinal detachment, and there is optic atrophy and retinitis pigmentosa and many other diseases. So though all of the above condition cause some amount of visual problem, but the cataract and refractive error can be managed very well to a great extent. A study was looked on a high incidence of depression in people with ARMD, which was released by the National Institutes of Health. In addition to making it difficult to go places, vision impairment make people very hesitant to do and participate in the social activities which once they were very interested before. People who have dealt with keratoconus have very long time, get tired and worn out of the effects. And these refractory keratoconus people are generally younger people. So all the aspects were affected, like their career choices, their family planning, everything is affected. Similarly, glaucoma, which is a leading cause of irreversible blindness. It is called a silent thief of sight, and the patient doesn't know also its vision is gone. Diabetic Retinopathy similarly occurs in chronic diabetes, which already suffered from other systemic complication, and when they also don't know when the vision is affected, they get devastated. And ARMD is the leading cause of irreversible visual loss in older age, which affects the central vision. Cataract generally can be managed, and other glaucoma also peripheral vision affects first, but ARMD affects the central vision first. So they are their habits are impaired, like hobbies, close work, reading and recognizing faces, which impacts their quality of life. Depression is though the leading symptom among the group of mental illness. Other symptoms are also seen, like social withdrawal, panic attacks, your anxiety, and lastly leading to suicidal tendency, and this becomes a point of no return. So what can we do? We can reverse this point of no return with the help of sufficient support with our ophthalmologist, optometrist, and the help from family, and creating a particular therapeutic group, and also with proper low vision heads from the optometrist. So my aim of the study is to study various ocular diseases affecting mental health and proper measures to prevent it. It's a prospective observational kind of study from October 2014 to December 2016. 44 patients were taken, out of which 12 were end-stage glaucoma, 21 were ARMD, 2 refractory keratoconus, 6 had long-standing PDR with vitreous hemorrhage and retinal detachment, 3 were central retinal occlusion. Visual acuity, central slit lamp score, slit lamp examination, indirect ophthalmoscopy, visual field, and GAD score, that is Goldberg anxiety and depression score, was tested in all the 44 patients. My patient includes irreversible visual loss, those who showed some signs and symptoms of mental illness, and exclusion criteria had high refractive error, only cataract patients, or morbidly systemic ill patient, or patient who lost to follow-up. Out of the 44 patients, 27 patients had some other features of mental illness, like we could see depression in all the 27 patients, that is 61.3 patients, social withdrawal in 14 patients, anxiety in 6 patients, and suicidal tendency in 2 patients. This is a graph showing the mental illness features, that is 61.3% showed depression, social withdrawal in 31%, anxiety in 13.6%, and suicidal in 0.5%. Now the grading of depression was done, and its relationship was measured with the GAD score we take. In grade 1 was on the verge of depression, which we could see 12 patients, that is 44.4 patients. Minor to moderate cases were 10 patients, that is 37 patients, and moderate to severe were 4 patients, and severe patients were 1. This is the graph showing the grading of depression in relationship to the GAD score, which we could see grade 1 44.4, grade 2 37%, grade 3 14.8%, and grade 4 3.7%. And after the counseling and proper help from the family support, what could effect we could see? The total affected patients, as we all know, were 27 patients of the 44, and with that around 21 patients, that is 77.8% improved. Their condition and mental status improved to a lot, and no improvement was seen in 6 patients, that is 22.2 patients. It's a pie chart showing the same. So as we have already seen that this 44 patient, 27 are having some other features of mental illness, and out of the 27 patients, 21 has been already improved with the your family support and your and all the therapeutic support they are getting. So one such study was conducted by the National Institutes of Health, where participants visited the optometrist and were given low vision aid. But then they were divided into behavior activation therapy, where one group was given that and one group was not given that. Those who were given with behavior activation therapy, their depression score were improved to more than 50%, rather than those control group which did not receive any behavior activation therapy. So mental illness in these ocular morbid cases need utmost care, with counseling from both the ophthalmologist, the optometrist, the family support, and the therapeutic counseling from the psychiatrist and other help. Otherwise their life can be very life-threatening. Even a small disease can cause very life-threatening person. It is not the disease that only affects the mental condition, but uncertainty that vision will ever improve in their life, which greatly affects the mental status of the patient. So what should be the patient perspectives in the bid? The patient should know whether he is having any suicidal thoughts, making sure that he is addressing the actual root cause of the problem, educating the patient about the disease process, socializing more, not less, and learning to help others, not just to remain with it. If you have countered the problem and you have improved yourself with the problem, we should help the other people also to deal with that kind of problem. Otherwise, that's the way we can improve a lot. These are my references. And lastly, I want to tell, we as ophthalmologists, if take 2 minutes extra in these patients whose ocular conditions are more affected, out of our busy life, 2 minutes extra for them for proper counseling, we can greatly affect their mental status as ophthalmologists. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. You have very rightly highlighted that people down with ocular morbidity, they require a lot of counseling and family support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I call upon the next speaker to investigate the association between thyroid dysfunction and diabetic retinopathy, Dr. Vishnu Vahan Prasann. Not there? Please mark him as absent. We go to the next presentation, Prevalence of Glaucoma and East India Study, to be presented by Chandrima Paul. Ma'am, your membership number, please.
C5632.
Right.
So, honorable judges and dear colleagues, Prevalence of Glaucoma and East Indian Study, I acknowledge my co-authors. I have no financial interest in the study. The aims of the study was to assess and compare the prevalence and types of glaucoma in the rural Hooghly district and urban Kolkata metropolitan city East Indian population. It's a population-based cross-sectional study divided into 2 divisions, the epidemiological fieldwork and hospital-based clinical examination and diagnostic procedures. The rural study area consisted of 13 Gram Panchayats from the district of Hooghly in West Bengal, which are about 20 kilometers surrounding the rural base hospital located at Dhobapara in the circle there. And the urban study area was the Kolkata metropolitan city. Kolkata is divided into 15 bureaus and 141 wards. The one division was randomly selected from each of these 15 bureaus, and 8 subdivisions were taken from the randomly selected 15 divisions. And the tertiary eye hospital was in central Kolkata on the AJC Bose Road. So assuming a 3% prevalence of glaucoma based on the other prevalence studies, a relative precision of 25%, 85% and 90% compliance, and a design effect of 2, we required a sample size of 4,300 for the rural and 4,500 for the urban. Therefore, 10,994 subjects from the rural and 11,290 from the urban were enumerated. Social workers and volunteers conducted a door-to-door survey and distributed household questionnaires from which they collected demographic information. The eligible subjects were given a unique 10-digit identification number and were motivated for the clinical examination on a convenient date to the base hospital. Apart from the routine ophthalmological examination, frequency doubling perimetry analyzed by glaucoma experts, corneal pachymetry and intraocular pressure were measured, gonioscopy was done, and fundus and the optic disc was evaluated at the slit lamp using a plus 90D. Inclusion criteria were people aged 40 years and above, residents for a minimum period of 6 months and willing to participate. These were the exclusion criteria. So, International Society of Geographical and Epidemiological Ophthalmology recommendations were followed with some study-specific modification. Those modifications were presence of a cluster of 3 contiguous points at the 5% level or less on the pattern deviation plot of the N30 threshold test done on the FDP. And glaucoma was diagnosed on the basis of structural and functional evidence, or evidence of structural damage when reliable field testing was not possible, or when the optic disc was not visible, IOP at the 99.5th percentile, or evidence of filtering surgery. So data analysis was done using SPSS version 23 and Microsoft Excel 2016. Threshold for statistical significance was set at p less than 5.5%. Student t-test and chi-square test were done for the variables, and the multiple groups were compared using analysis of variance. The risk factors for glaucoma investigated using univariate and multivariate regression analyses, and odd ratios with 95% confidence intervals were calculated in the regression analyses. So the mean IOP in the rural division was 16.5 with 25 millimeters of mercury and 30 millimeters of mercury at the 97.5 and 99.5 at percentile. In the urban division, it was 17.2 with 27 and 31. The VCDR in the rural division was 0.4, and that in the urban division was 0.5. There was a positive correlation between the intraocular pressure and the VCDR in both the groups. The glaucoma prevalence was found to be 2.6% in the rural population as compared to 3.1% in the urban population. So the glaucoma prevalence also varied with age. It increased with age in both the groups. And the types of glaucoma, as you see out there, if you look at the pie chart, it's almost 50-50 in primary open-angle glaucoma and angle closure glaucoma, with a small division of secondary glaucoma. So there was a positive correlation between age and intraocular pressure and VCDR. However, the correlation of age with VCDR was more significant than that with intraocular pressure. The distribution of intraocular pressure, vertical cup disc ratio, was obtained from the right eye of subjects with suprathreshold normal visual fields in both populations. Increasing IOP and older age were associated with the disease, and the prevalence was significantly higher in the rural population and the urban population than in the rural. So reviewing the literature, I found that prevalence of glaucoma did not differ by gender. This was also found in the other studies, and prevalence of primary open-angle glaucoma was higher in the urban population, also found in the previously done epidemiological studies. Prevention of glaucoma, prevalence of glaucoma actually increased with age, and the VCDR was comparable to the Chennai glaucoma study that we got, and we also used the modified ISGO, which was used in the other studies. FDT positivity was significantly higher in the urban group. This was also evident in the Chennai glaucoma study, and 92.4% in the rural population and 91.5% in the urban were actually unaware that they had the disease, which is also comparable with the Chennai glaucoma study. And the ratio of primary open-angle glaucoma to angle closure glaucoma was 1.26:1 as compared to 1.1:1 in the urban group. So the conclusions were the average IOP, CCT, VCDR and FDT positivity in both eyes was similar in both the rural and urban groups. IOP showed a positive correlation with age and VCDR in both the groups. POAG is more common in both the rural and urban groups. PSCD is much more common in this region than previously thought. The study strongly recommends that gonioscopy should be made an integral part of glaucoma screening programs, and the findings of this study will help in developing public health strategies for early detection of glaucoma. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I wanted to know two things from you. For having the rural screening, did you take a portable the slit lamp with you?
No, sir. We actually had a base hospital in the rural area, which was 20 kilometers surrounding that area, which we did the door-to-door survey. So the people were transported in the vehicle from their houses to the base hospital in the rural area, and that is where it was conducted, the tests.
Did you perform gonioscopy with single mirror or 3-mirror gonioscope?
No, we performed gonioscopy with 4 mirrors, sir.
4 mirror.
Yes.
3. Why did you not take account of angle closure glaucoma also? Chronic angle closure glaucoma.
Yes,
that has also become a very important blinding disease now.
Yes,
now we blame it more than POAG for.
Yes, sir. That is what we found, that the angle closure disease in the previous West Bengal study was 1:10, whereas in our study it's almost 50-50 angle closure.
Right. Thank you.
So the thesis was on a much smaller subject, but yeah, but this is on a much bigger platform.
No financial disclosure, no professional disclosure. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
I call upon the next speaker, going to talk about body mass index. Is it important for the eye? Dr. L. Sophia. Your membership number, ma'am?
Sir, 17229.
Right, thank you.
Good afternoon, one and all. I'm Dr. Sophia from the Institute of Ophthalmology, Joseph Eye Hospital, Trichy. The topic for today's presentation is body mass index. Is it important for the eye? No financial disclosures. Obesity in India has reached epidemic proportions in the 21st century, with morbid obesity affecting 5% of the country's population. Internationally, a body mass index of more than 25 kilograms per meter squared is considered to be overweight, whereas a BMI of more than 30 is considered obese. Overweight and obesity have become global epidemics. We are all well aware of the effects of obesity and overweight on the systemic health. However, less is known about the effect of these on the eye. Our concern is there a relationship between obesity and elevated intraocular pressure? Some epidemiological studies have examined a possible relationship between BMI and IOP. Our aim here is to evaluate an association between BMI and IOP in men and women. This was an observational study conducted on 200 consecutive outpatients at a tertiary eye care hospital in South India. The Institutional Ethics Committee approved the conduct of the study. Willful verbal consent was obtained from all the patients. These were our inclusion and exclusion criteria. The parameters studied included the vision by Snellen's chart, the intraocular pressure measurement by non-contact tonometer, central corneal thickness by optical pachymetry. A corneal thickness of 540 was taken as normal and pressures were adjusted accordingly. A slit lamp examination of the anterior and posterior segment was done. The weight in kilograms and height in meters was measured. The BMI was calculated by the formula weight in kilograms divided by the height in square meters. And the following BMI categories were used. BMI less than 18.5 was categorized as underweight, 18.5 to 24.9 as normal, 25 to 29 as overweight, and a BMI more than 30 was categorized as obese. And for statistical analysis, we have used the chi-square test, the Pearson's correlation coefficient, and a p-value of less than 0.05 was considered statistically significant. Our results. This table shows the mean age, intraocular pressure, CCT, and the body mass index in the study individuals. And out of the 200 participants, we had 90 males and 110 females. The mean age was 50.32, mean IOP 15.78, the mean CCT was 529.48, and the mean BMI was 25.06. And we found that for all these four parameters, the values in females was higher when compared to males. This table shows the age distribution of the study individuals in the different BMI subcategories. Of the 200 participants, there were 94 who fell in the normal category, 67 were overweight, and 33 were obese. And out of the 33 who were obese, we found that 25 of them were in the age group of more than 50 years. This difference was found to be statistically significant. And the scatter plot showing a possible correlation between the BMI and age in the study individuals, we found a statistically significant positive correlation. This table, it showed the gender distribution of the study individuals in the different BMI categories. There was almost an equal number of males and females in the different categories, which was not of any statistical significance. A table which showed the mean IOP in the different BMI categories, we found that a trend that increasing IOP as the BMI increased. A scatter plot which showed a possible correlation between BMI and intraocular pressure in the study individuals, we found a statistically significant positive correlation. A correlation between BMI and CCT was also studied, but there was a weak positive correlation, however, was not statistically significant. Out of the 200 subjects, 70 of them had diabetes, hypertension, or both, and 38 out of the 70, that is 54%, had a BMI of more than 25, that is, they were either overweight or obese. According to the current definition for obesity in the Asia-Pacific region, adults are considered to be overweight at a BMI of more than 23 and obese at a BMI of more than 25. We have used BMI values of more than 25 and more than 30 respectively to define overweight and obesity in our population. In the current study, we found that greater the age, the higher was the BMI, especially so in individuals above 50 years of age. In a study by Gordon et al., the authors found that with aging, increased BMI was noted until 60 years of age, after which it tended to show a decrease. The mean BMI in our study was 25.06, the mean intraocular pressure was 15.78. Women were found to have a higher BMI as well as a higher IOP than men, a finding that was consistent with that reported in previous studies. The BMI was also positively correlated to IOP in our study. There was a trend towards increasing IOP as BMI increased. This was similar to results by Cohen et al., wherein the authors found a significant gradual increase in IOP for each increase in BMI subcategory. There was also a weak positive correlation between BMI and CCT. Something like the AIOC study, which showed a higher BMI, especially in diabetics, was found to be associated with a greater CCT. A possible direct effect of obesity causing an increase in intraocular pressure could be because of excess or vital fat, resulting in increased orbital pressure, or increased red cell count hemoglobin hematocrit with increased blood viscosity. The resultant increased episcleral venous pressure, resulting in increased resistance to aqueous outflow, thereby increasing the intraocular pressure. My conclusion, in both men and women, higher BMI is positively correlated with higher IOP, with obesity being a possible risk factor for high IOP. Abnormal BMI associated with aging, hypertension, and diabetes can compound this phenomenon. A regression analysis for age, diabetes, and hypertension will help to establish BMI as an independent risk factor for raised IOP. And is BMI really important to the eye? Yeah, with our study showing a trend towards increasing IOP as BMI increases, the answer is possibly yes. However, a normal IOP range according to the BMI may need to be defined from population-based studies. And at present, I would conclude by saying obesity may be included as one among other risk factors in a patient being assessed for glaucoma. Thank you.
Reverse may be true. Any patient having a diabetes and obesity, BMI should be evaluated.
Definitely, sir. So that is the point of our study. The crux of it is, yes, sir.
Any eye disease of vulnerability, then BMI should be evaluated.
Definitely, sir.
Instead of BMI is relating to the eye disorders, reverse may be evaluated. Two or more of significance, because this any obesity.
The risk of having the other problems is definitely. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, you didn't have any control subjects for this?
No, sir. We have taken from consecutive outpatients, sir. We did not do it in general population was presented to our hospital, sir.
Who presented to the glaucoma clinic?
No, sir. To the general OPD, sir. So
But-
not specifically glaucoma department, sir.
I see.
Sorry.
No, you said
Sir.
all these patients had some rise of intraocular pressure, no?
No, sir. We have assessed patients from who are presented to the outpatient department, sir. So it
Okay.
is a consecutive 200 patients randomly from the general OPD, sir.
I see. Okay, then thank you.
Thank you, doctor. I
Thank
think
you.
your study should give a positive message for all obese patients to be careful about their IOP in future. Thank you. Now we go to the next paper that is on digital imaging and communication in medicine, effectiveness in ophthalmology data management. Dr. Vivek Kumar, your membership number?
K19617.
Dr. Vivek, your membership number?
Yeah? Excuse me?
Your AIOS membership number?
K19617.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Vivek from, I'm a DMS student at Drashti Netralaya. Today I will be speaking on the topic digital imaging and communication in medicine, its effectiveness in ophthalmic data management. I would like to thank my mentor Dr. Mehul Shah and Dr. Soya Shah for giving me this opportunity. So ophthalmic imaging is a very important component of ophthalmic investigation, as these are used to retrieve high quality information about the ocular disease, to monitor the disease course, and to document the treatment effects. So what are the pitfalls in ophthalmic device management without DICOM? Each time we have to enter the data in each of the ophthalmic devices like fundus camera, Humphreys field analyzer, and OCTA. And they produce separate reports which are in a paper format or digital format. And these formats, they cannot be easily imported. Also, at the time of subsequent clinical visits, we use hard copy like printed image of the patients, and we should have the access to these devices. During decision making, a clinician doesn't have access to all these images together with the clinical data. This is a complex method of workflow because it needs a lot of staff, and also there is a more chances of losing or misfiling paper-based patient data or misidentification. So this can lead to unnecessary repeated examination, delayed clinical decision making, and diagnosis applied to incorrect patients. Thus, a key issue for the modern ophthalmologist is developing a system to assess easily all the correct information for all the patients in time. So this is a workflow when DICOM was not implemented. In each of the ophthalmic devices, we have to enter the data separately. Then they will produce the report, which will go to the image management software and finally to the physician for reports. The aim of this study is to explore the impact of DICOM workflow on the staff efficacy and rate of misfiled image. In late September 2013, we deployed DICOM-based archive. It is our study is a non-human subject research, so it was exempted from the review. No additional staffs were required. All the existing data from the visual field, they will upload it from the Humphreys field analyzer to the DICOM, and so they were available for the progression analysis. The DICOM archive was in turn linked to our central patient registry system. During the survey of the ophthalmic technician, the work performed by the 2 technicians 3 months before and 12 months after the implementation of DICOM were evaluated, and each technicians were asked to complete a paper form indicating the work required by them. So how misfiling of the image occurred? Each time the technician mistyped a patient name, demographic data, so it created a difficulty in matching the images and reports to the demographic data. So they have to work extra in matching these reports. So to measure this phenomena, we analyzed the log files of our image management system, and the statistical analysis was done using software SPS22 and tests of significance using ANOVA test. So coming to the results, 3 months before and 12 months after the implementation of DICOM, correct entry, which was before 81%, has increased to 97.8%. Number of repeated entry, which was 7%, has decreased to 0.9%. Number of merging of data required was 4.8%, which has decreased to 0.6% after implementation of DICOM. Number of editing of data required, which was 5%, has decreased to 0.2%. Number of spelling variations, which was 2%, has decreased to 0.4%. So over a period of 12 months, the misfiled image, which was earlier 2.2%, has decreased to 0.9% after the implementation of DICOM. So in 1985, DICOM was designed with the digital data transfer, storage and progression of the image. So what DICOM adds actually, we have to enter the data only single time, not in all the devices. Then data are collected in a format that can be easily imported. There is no need to access to the ophthalmic devices because these images are stored in a central server which is known as archive, and then directly can be viewed. It helps in fast decision making because all the images from all the devices along with the clinical data, they can be viewed through one system. Multiple widgets and clinical data, these images can be compared together. This is a simplified method of workflow because it involves only one technician and one clinician. There are also reduced chances of misfiling of the images and misidentification. So this combination of imaging method, a DICOM archive and a review system, is known as picture archiving and communication system. Also, the images from our satellite clinics flow to the central registration system. So this is a DICOM-based workflow. In here, we have to enter data only once, which goes to the clinical registration, and that is pushed to the DICOM archive. So from here, DICOM archive, we can order for OCT, we can order for fundus photo and Humphreys field analyzer, and the reports will go back to the DICOM archive, and finally it will be produced to the clinician. So from this study, we conclude that the implementation of DICOM compatible workflow, it reduces the need to enter or edit a patient's demographic data into testing devices separately, thereby increasing the staff efficacy and reducing the file images. So limitations of our study are, this is an observational study, and each time we cannot generalize this study because each clinic use different softwares and approaches, and we did not include in formal based analysis. So this is our patient registration system. By clicking on this, we can see all the data regarding the history and demographic data. I'll play a small video. This is a DICOM software. So each time we have to enter the data. So we can, we have patient directory, we have work list, and we have the patient administration. Patient administration, we can add new patients in that. We can add new patients data. Then if we have to create a order on the same date, then directly we don't have to enter data again and again. We can create a data for the fundus imaging, for Humphreys field analyzer, and for OCT. Suppose we have to create order for OCT, for fundus imaging. So this is a software for fundus imaging. So we don't have to enter data again and again. The fundus imaging has been taken and it has been imported to the DICOM, and it can be directly viewed by the clinician. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor. I think you have very nicely outlined the importance of this DICOM system for entry of data and other advantages as mentioned by you. Thank you.
This is already done. The next best paper from G&K Ophthalmic Society. The pattern of refractive
Yes, sir.
Your membership number?
Yes, sir. G20867. G20867.
This is after the ratification.
Non-ratified. Non-ratified.
No problem, but it's a matter of proud that you have won the best paper award from your J&K Ophthalmic Society, and
Yes.
we like to have your presentation here.
Good afternoon. The title of my paper is Pattern of Refractive Errors in Kashmiri Population, a Hospital-Based Study.
Can you repeat your membership number, please?
G20867.
Thank you, gentlemen. Go ahead.
Refractive error is the most common ocular disorder worldwide. Second common cause of blindness in India. Approximately 2.3 billion people are living with this disorder and is the commonest reason for patients to visit an ophthalmologist. Overall incidence is reported to vary between 21 to 25% of the patients. Avoidable blindness and low vision can restrict progress in education, limit motor ability, affect mobility, limit career opportunities, and restrict access to information. So there is a priority need to control and prevent these disorders. For this, information about the pattern of refractive errors in the population is essential. It helps in planning effective community programs to deal with the problem. So the aim of my study was to determine the pattern of refractive errors in patients attending the outpatient department of ophthalmology, Cme Medical College, Srinagar, and to determine the socio-demographic factors influencing the pattern of refractive errors. The study was conducted for a period of 1 year from Jan 2014 to 2015. Patients with a refractive error of at least 0.5 diopter were included in the study, and any patient having a disease in the eye responsible for diminished vision like any retinopathy, significant cataract, aphakia, pseudophakia or corneal pathologies were excluded. Patient's data was retrieved in a structure pro forma which consisted of demographic parameters, unaided visual acuity, anterior segment fundus examination, best corrected visual acuity and visual correction given. Cycloplegic refraction was done wherever necessary. Statistical analysis was done to test the association between demographic variables with the type of refractive error. Results of the study, 1301 patients were included in the study. Among them, 43.5% were males and 56.5% were females. So there were significantly more females than males. Age of the patients varied between 1 to 70 years. Mean age was 34 years. Myopia was significantly more common in men, 53% versus women, 42.5%. Hypermetropia was more common in women than men, 24 versus 18%. This shows the gender distribution of refractive errors. Myopia is seen more common in men than in women, whereas hypermetropia is seen more commonly in women than men. Overall, myopia was the most common refractive error occurring with a frequency of 47%, followed by hypermetropia with a frequency of 22% and followed by simple myopic astigmatism 17%. Myopia showed an increasing trend with age. It increased up to 25 years of age and then decreased progressively with age. Hypermetropia showed an early childhood peak because of shorter axial lengths of the eyeballs and then decreased up to 45 years of age, then again showed an increasing trend. Other refractive errors showed a fairly constant distribution with age. Among patients with astigmatism, overall 371 patients had astigmatism, out of whom 50.9% had against the rule astigmatism, 40% had with the rule astigmatism, and 8% had oblique astigmatism. The frequency of against the rule astigmatism increased with age, and that of with the rule astigmatism decreased with age, which is because of the decrease in lid tension with age, leading to flattening of the horizontal meridian, steepening of horizontal meridian. Both myopia and hypermetropia had a positive correlation with family history. High myopia, which was defined as a myopia of more than 6 diopters, had highly significant relationship with family history. Presbyopic correction, the youngest age at which near eye was needed was 37 years, and the mean age of patients requiring presbyopic correction was 47.96 years. Conclusion, myopia is the commonest refractive error among males and in younger age groups. Hypermetropy is more common among females and in older age groups. Knowledge of data regarding the pattern of refractive errors is useful in keeping ready stock of lenses required to meet the demands of a quick supply of spectacles in the hospital and also for community programs. Bulk of hypermetropy below 40 years of age are within less than 15-year age group, signifying hypermetropic refraction in prepubertal age because of the shorter action length of eyeballs. Because this type of error can lead to strabismus and amblyopia, there is a priority need to screen children for refractive errors. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you for highlighting the pattern of refractive errors in the population of J&K. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I call upon the next speaker is going to talk about proportion of diabetic retinopathy in diabetics presenting at a tertiary eye care center. Dr. Manvi Deokrishna Sendal. Your membership number, ma'am?
S11035.
Right, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am here to present some insights on our study on the proportion of diabetic retinopathy in diabetics presenting at a tertiary eye care center. No financial interest. So there is a poor awareness of diabetic retinopathy in the general population, and delay in treatment can cause vision loss. Are some things that are known, and these can be tackled by screening programs. Extensive targeted screening programs are done, but where does opportunistic screening stand? Arvind Eye Hospital, Pondicherry sees about 800 new cases per day and covers a large population base, whereby we can see about 40 diabetics who are visiting the hospital for the first time every day. We went ahead to elucidate why does a diabetic seek eye care and to correlate this with their ophthalmic diagnosis. Our aim was to detect the proportion of diabetic retinopathy in diabetic patients presenting to the outpatient department of AEH Pondi, and the objectives were to evaluate the presenting complaints correlated to their diagnosis and to note the percentage of vision-threatening diabetic retinopathy. For this observational cross-sectional study, which went on for about a year, the sample size was calculated to be 864. Patients visiting the hospital for the first time who were known or new diabetics were recruited. All the cases were examined by retina specialists. 956 cases of the recruited 1,000 patients were analyzed. What is interesting to note here is that 29 patients were newly diagnosed to be diabetic. That is, in our hospital, they were diagnosed to have diabetes mellitus, and 6 of these patients showed diabetic retinopathy at presentation. The overall proportion of DR in our population was, in our cohort, was 51.5%. If you look at the spectrum of complaints, the major or the main complaint that they presented, 66% of the cohort presented with defective vision. The second most commonest in 22% being for a routine eye checkup. Headache, watering, etc. formed some of the other complaints. The diagnosis of presentation, 26% of the cohort had diabetic retinopathy alone, 25% had diabetic retinopathy with cataract, 17% only cataract. Out of the 32% with other diagnosis, though a major chunk was by the refractive errors, an entire spectrum of ocular diagnosis was seen in this population of patients. Now, if you look at the complaints versus their diagnosis, and here we concentrate at the defective vision group, about 55.5% of this group had diabetic retinopathy at presentation. But even those who presented for routine checkup, though a majority of them had refractive error, 42% of this proportion also had diabetic retinopathy at presentation. If you look at the grades of DR, we can see that the VTDR was seen in more than 1/4 of the population. So if you look here at this table, the last 3 columns show the vision-threatening diabetic retinopathy. And though the defective vision group has the major chunk of it, even people who came for routine eye checkup and with complaints like headache and watering showed VTDR at first presentation. So if we look at our study, we will note that there is a higher prevalence of diabetic retinopathy in our study, which could be because we are a tertiary eye care center and also because all our patients were examined by retina consultants. Some of the interesting highlights are that a large portion of the patients were symptomatic. Though lesser grades of diabetic retinopathy were seen, we saw VTDR at first presentation. We saw it even in asymptomatic patients. We could pick out patients with diabetic mellitus in our care, and some of these patients also had diabetic retinopathy at first presentation. So where do these findings lead us? So if we looked at identification of diabetic retinopathy in this pyramidal kind of a fashion, the large population-based surveys which form the solid base of this pyramid are probably the best way to screen for DR. But these surveys require a lot of manpower, funding, and are difficult to execute. Multiple such surveys are done from our country and abroad with excellent data, and they show a prevalence in the population from 17 to 18% to about 26% in the rural population. The next level of screening could be in general hospital populations where patients have been presenting for non-ocular complaints, like in this study from Lahore, where they noted a prevalence of 33.3% DR in patients admitted in the general wards or medicine and surgery wards for other complaints. And yes, the apex of the pyramid is formed by the various vitreoretina clinics, wherein not only screening but also treatment is provided. And thereby these clinics also have a higher proportion, like this study from Kathmandu, which showed a 78% diabetic retinopathy in their population. So where do we lie? If you look at our center, our population that our center, especially in the unit, sees is much like what a comprehensive ophthalmologist would be seeing in his clinic. And as all ophthalmologists are covering large population bases, if we were to do the fundus examination for each and every patient presenting to our hospital, every diabetic who presents to our hospital, we could be key in opportunistic screening for diabetic retinopathy, and this could be a very effective and sustainable model for catching hold of this disease in the general population. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I think
Thank
your
you.
message is very clear for the diabetic population.
No, everybody does, sir, just emphasizing the point that even person who's coming with redness or watering or normal refractive error can.
But they have they have studied the diabetic No, Dr. Shrikant, but they have studied the diabetic population.
Whatever it is, if I can
So,
presenting eye
that's
hospital,
it.
is an important integral part of it.
That's true. That's
Definitely,
a general recommendation. But I thought her presentation was related to a diabetic population.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Diabetic it is furthermore.
We go to the next speaker. Rapid eye screening test, REST, Vidya Shastri. She is a non-ratified member of AIOS.
Sir, V20023. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm presenting a paper about a visual screening app. So I would like to start with a short video. Afterwards, I'll be briefing about it. So this is our ophthalmologist who is training the children. They are non-healthcare volunteers about this app. Can I have the volume? So in their own vernacular language, he's explaining the mobile app to the kids. They were going through a brief understanding about the app. So they started using it, and then we use tested the app on a patient too. So actually the audio is not playing. This application has auditory cues to give a wrong answer or right answer. Anyways, I'll be briefing about it in the presentation. So it's a rapid eye screening test, a mobile app based screening in the outreach camps. I have no financial disclosures. So visual acuity is the most frequently performed test in OPDs. So we use the common Snellen chart and also the ETDRS charts. So a Snellen chart has different number of rows, characters per row, and there is no logarithmic decrease in the letter size, whereas ETDRS has equal number of characters and logarithmic decrease in the between the successive rows. What we wanted to study is whether this app, the visual acuity screen through this REST app, is in comparison with the standard ETDRS tumbling E chart. So this is how you can download this app. It is available in the Play Store for all the Android and iOS devices. Once you install the app, you will have to make preliminary settings. You keep the setting whether you are going to test at 3 meters or at 1 meter. Suppose you want to test at 3 meters, you need to calibrate the first optotype letter to 43 millimeter with a ruler scale. You can install it on your app, on your mobiles or your tab or any such device, and then if you want to test at 1 meter, you have to calibrate it to 14 mm, only the first letter of the optotype. Once you have made these settings, you can start the test. It's not moving. Yeah. So you need to place the app with the highest screening brightness, and it also has positive cues. If the patient gives a right answer, it gives a positive sound, and if a patient gives a negative answer, it gives a negative sound. So this study was conducted at 4 outreach camps for a period of 4 weeks. So 200 patients were screened, and we trained non-healthcare children and volunteers to conduct the test, and then we rechecked the test using the ETDRS chart. Patients with vision less than 6/60 were excluded. So the mean age of the patients was 52.8 years, and out of which 106 eyes had immature cataract and 40 eyes had mature cataract. Once the visual acuity was recorded, we converted it into logMAR visual acuity for both using the REST app and the ETDRS app. We found that the mean logMAR visual acuity measured by the REST app was 0.785 plus or minus 0.211, and with the ETDRS was 0.789 plus or minus 0.211. There is a significant positive correlation between the two test methods using the Pearson correlation, and p-value was less than 0.001. So also the time taken during the test was noted, and we found that the trainee, after a brief training, using the REST app was recording using 19 seconds, and the ETDRS chart took around 21 seconds. So this is a line diagram to correlate our test results, and it found that using the app and the ETDRS, you get a strong correlation between the two test methods. So what I would like to tell is this app is user friendly, you can easily download, and when you want to go to the camps, you can carry it. You all carry the mobile technology is far more used now. So this is time saving and accurate. Mass screening, you can you can even train the unskilled volunteers and utilize them in early detection of low vision and do further management. So this is one of the best advantage of this app. So limitation is that the screen contrast and brightness of the devices cannot be standardized. And also since it runs on battery lifespan is one such limitation. My references, and thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for highlighting about this REST app. I think it's a future hope for at least our Indian scenario.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now, our next presentation is about quality of life after SICS and phacoemulsification. Dr. Nidhi Pandey. Dr. Nidhi Pandey. Your membership number, ma'am? Speak to the mic. Yes.
P07183. Hello everybody, a very good afternoon to all of you. I'll be presenting my study on the quality of life after SICS and phacoemulsification. I have no financial disclosures in this study. Manual small incision cataract surgery, or SICS, has proved to be a safe and cost-effective technique for tackling the huge backlog of cataract blindness. And it has been shown to be as effective as phacoemulsification in terms of visual outcomes and safety of the procedure. It might even be superior to phaco in tackling the hard brown cataracts in terms of the surgical time required and its cost effectiveness. The complication rates are comparable with those of phacoemulsification. To evaluate the outcome of any intervention, visual acuity alone might be an inadequate measure, and the assessment of patient satisfaction and quality of life following intervention are also important. This study compares the change in quality of life after the two surgical procedures using the Indian Vision Function Questionnaire. This questionnaire has been developed by Murthy et al. To elicit the problem statements describing the consequences of vision impairment in the Indian population, and it has been devised in de novo from patient opinions and experiences following recommended steps of instrument development, and has been previously validated and tested for reliability. The study was a quasi-experimental study conducted in the Department of Ophthalmology, Pandit JNM Medical College, Raipur. We recruited 60 patients from February 2017 to April 2017. We included patients aged 20 to 70 years who had a nuclear sclerosis grade 2 to nuclear sclerosis grade 4 cataracts in both eyes, who presented to us for cataract surgery. We excluded those patients who had vision-threatening other ocular comorbidities and those having chronic systemic diseases that could significantly affect their quality of life, and of course those patients who were not willing to be interviewed. 30 of these patients underwent SICS and 30 underwent phacoemulsification. The assessment was done using the Hindi version of the questionnaire, which has been previously used by the developers by translating and back translating. This questionnaire has 33 items in 3 domains. Domain 1, 2, 3 having the general functioning questions, questions related to psychosocial impact, and visual symptom related questions. The responses were calibrated quantitatively by giving a score to each of the responses from 1 to 5 for domain 1 and 1 to 4 for domain 2 and 3. The summary scores from each domain were added to give a total quality of life score with a minimum score of 33 and a maximum of 153. So the higher was the score, the worse was the quality of life. The questionnaire was administered before surgery after taking a consent, and then the participants underwent either SICS with implantation of a rigid PMMA lens or phaco with implantation of a foldable lens. All surgeries were performed under peribulbar anesthesia. Quality of life was reassessed at approximately 15 days to 1 month after surgery by the same assessor, and this was done before spectacle prescription because we believe that for everyday ambulatory vision, most patients do not use their spectacles and rely on their uncorrected vision. The age group of the patients in the SICS group was slightly higher compared to the phaco group, and there were more females in the SICS group, while in the phaco group there were almost equal distribution of males and females. Then we tested our data for normality using the Shapiro-Wilk test and found that it was not significant for both the groups, indicating a normal distribution of data. We then did a pre to post operative analysis for the SICS group and found that the quality of life scores in each domain as well as the combined total score demonstrated a statistically significant decrease from pre to post surgery in the SICS group. Similarly, in the phaco group, there was a statistically significant decrease from pre to post procedure for all the 3 domains as well as for the total score. Then we studied the difference between the 2 groups in the change in scores using the independent samples test and found that there was no statistically significant difference between the groups in any of the domains nor in the total score. Previous studies have shown significant improvement in quality of life after cataract surgery. Better outcomes in terms of patients' quality of life following phaco has also been compared to manual extracapsular cataract extraction. This study is the first of its kind comparing quality of life following phacoemulsification and SICS. Quality of life scores decreased significantly following both interventions. No difference was found in the pre to post change scores between phaco and SICS groups in any of the domains nor in the total score. Both intervention techniques could thus significantly improve the quality of life, with no one technique better than the other in their ability to affect the quality of life scores. For future research, we suggest comparing the quality of life scores on a longer term basis or even on a shorter term basis using a larger sample size. To conclude, both phacoemulsification and SICS significantly improved the quality of life post-operatively to a similar extent, and as with other previous comparisons, SICS proved to be equivalent to phacoemulsification in terms of improving the quality of life also. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Your study group is too small, 30 SICS and 30 phaco. We are doing hundreds of SICS and hundreds of phaco. And
yes, sir.
how come you can be so authentic with 30 patients
yes,
in each group?
Actually, we designed this study as a pilot study and we'll be using this data to carry out a larger study, sir.
Dr. Nidhi, first thing is that what stimulated you to do this type of study? Means comparing the 2 procedures.
Yes,
and
actually.
And the major confounder, my question, major confounder, that is study population, have you taken care of that? That what type of population was there in SICS and what type of population was there in phacoemulsification?
Yes, sir. It was like I told, in the age group was slightly higher in the SICS group, but we included those patients having nuclear sclerosis grade 2 to grade 4 in both the groups.
No, that's not the question. Question is, means those who can afford it and those who can't afford it.
So we are in
entirely different population and group between the 2.
So we are in a government setup and both the surgeries are entirely free of cost.
Sir is also in government setup, but what he is talking is holds a key to his observation. Anyway, thank you, ma'am. Dr. Shisht.
The VFQ score according to age, probably they could have given us some very, very important findings, because higher the age group, probably the quality of life. And second important issue which I have worked on quality of life studies, it depends on the patient. I have observed patient with 6/60 vision, they say they are happy with the quality. And people with 6/6 vision outcome, they may not be happy with the quality. If we can add on the outcomes after cataract surgery, what is the visual outcomes, probably that could have given much better information.
Actually, SICS has been widely compared with phaco in all other terms, but we found this comparison has never been done.
Thank you, ma'am. There is no stigma as far as SICS is concerned. We go to the last speaker of this session. He's going to talk about smart way of diabetic retinopathy screening, a comparative study. Dr. Vinay Kumar Konana. Your membership number, please.
K16522, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'll be presenting my study on smartphone-based diabetic retinopathy screening. I have no financial disclosures. As we all know, prevalence of diabetes is increasing, and so is prevalence of diabetic retinopathy. With 70% of Indian population living in rural area, there is increased demand for diabetic retinopathy screening. And for this, we need an effective tool. A tool to be effective, it has to be sensitive, cost effective and portable. Commercially, there are two smartphone based direct ophthalmoscopes available. They are DI and peak retina. In this study, we have compared that to a indigenously developed Shankara Do It Yourself solution, which was published in 2014, wherein we connect a LED light just below the smartphone camera, and it is connected to external battery source, and any smartphone can be converted into a direct ophthalmoscope. In rest of my presentation, I would refer it to as our device for the sake of convenience. So far, there are no comparative study between these devices, and hence this study. Our aim was to compare and validate the efficacy of available smartphone direct ophthalmoscopes in screening diabetic retinopathy in the community. This was a prospective community-based comparative study where we studied 380 eyes of 200 diabetics. Dilated fundus imaging was done with 3 smartphone devices and Trinetra. A 7-field video was taken, and all smartphone devices were connected to a same model of smartphone for the sake of comparison. And image was captured by trained optometrists, and it was graded by 2 masked ophthalmologists, and we included diabetics who attended the screening camp and excluded the patient with shallow anterior chamber, severe media opacity and allergic to dilating drops. We screened the area with radius of 125 kilometers, and we looked at the ability of these smartphone devices to identify diabetic retinopathy and vision threatening diabetic retinopathy, and images were assessed for field of view, and image quality was assessed by brightness, sharpness and reflex artifacts, and we used a separate grading system for each parameter. This is an exemplary image. This was taken with Trinetra, and these images were taken with the smartphone devices. This was with peak retina, this is DI and our device. One can clearly make out that our device had a larger field of view with better sharpness, and this was a comparative video of a same eye taken with 3 devices. This video was taken with DI. Here we can see this DI device has a better illumination. This was taken with peak retina. Here one can note that there are a lot of reflex artifacts which is obscuring the fundus visualization. All these were 7-field videos. And the lower one is one which was taken with our device. Here we can clearly see the second and third order vessels with a large field of view. Only a D-shaped reflex artifacts can be seen, which doesn't obscure the visualization. This was a fundus photo captured with Trinetra, where there was CSME. Same eye was imaged with our device. Here one can note that we can clearly see the hard exudates at the macula, a succinate pattern of hard exudates, and we can see the foveal reflex. The same eye was imaged with, this was with DI and this was with peak retina. Here we can see lot of image reflex artifacts. We calculated the field of view using ImageJ software, wherein ratio of total field of view to the area of disc was calculated, and the ratio was highest with our device. That means the field of view was larger with our device. All these 3 devices, there was no statistical difference between the devices in terms of sensitivity and specificity in detecting diabetic retinopathy and vision threatening diabetic retinopathy, but numerically our device had higher numbers, and the sensitivity and specificity were comparable to the other studies. The most important thing was the cost. Our device costed just 150 rupees, which was 200 times cheaper than DI, and 100 times, approximately 100 times cheaper than peak retina. To conclude, our device stood first in terms of less reflexes, better field of view and sharpness, and being cost effective. And these smartphone devices are an effective tool in screening diabetic retinopathy, and all of us can convert our smartphones into a direct ophthalmoscope with just 150 rupees. Thank you. Pardon, sir?
He says you will
We
make
are
fundus
trying to
camera
do
obsolete.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you for this, talking about this new device. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
With this, we come to the end of this wonderful scientific session.
One thing I wanted to point out, you have come up with a good study and a very cheap option for
Yes,
screening of diabetic retinopathy. You may not go into the very details of ischemic
Yes,
areas and neovascular areas. Screening and detection, your device stands a good. First of all, the cost that you have said 150, it is not just 150, it is also you should include the cost of the smartphone
Yeah,
with
but
that.
almost all of us would carry a mobile with us.
That's
like,
okay.
Yeah.
Just a minute. And another thing that I wanted to really ask you is that you have talked of sensitivity and specificity. So, sensitivity and specificity against what? What was the gold standard in your study?
The fundus photo taken with Trinetra, ma'am. We have compared with that.
So you have compared the Trinetra
Yes,
and
ma'am.
DI with your device.
Yes, ma'am.
So Trinetra is the gold standard.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Fundus camera was taken as a portable fundus camera. Was taken as.
Thank you, ma'am. We break here. The next session is, has to start.
Thank you.
Madam has to start. That's why I'm requesting her to stop here. I thank all the participants. I thank all the fellow delegates for their kind intention. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.